Welcome to Moose Plays, everyone. I'm the Liquor Moose, and today we will be going over my Week 1 battle for the 10th season of the UPA. For Week 1, we will be going up against Jose AKA Shiny Weavile, coach of the Seattle Mareanies. And yeah, this is Week 1, and both of us definitely want to put our foot forward and start the season off right with a win, because honestly, with how insane the competition is this season, no one could really afford to slip up at any point. So we're both definitely looking for a win. Something I didn't mention in the team builder, however, is that this is actually it's an in-conference but out-of-division game. So we're competing with Jose with a playoff spot. So this is sort of important, and to that aspect, even though this is only Week 1, it is kind of noteworthy that it could be important later down the line. So yeah. Anyways, into the match. If you guys want to know more about my team in detail, I did upload a team builder that went live yesterday. I will leave a link to it in the description below. But for just a quick overview, we do have a specially defensive Kyurem with Toxic and Roost. We have kind of a specially defensive with 3 attacks and Roost Mega Scizor. We have Stealth Rocking specially defensive Miltank. Yes, we have a lot of specially defensive Pokemon this week. We have offensive Z Energy Ball Whimsicott with Defog. We do have Choice Banded Azumarill, and we have a mixed defensive Stall Breaking Mew. Looking at what Jose brought to the table, he brought the Mega Diancie, the Torn T, the Roserade, the Heatran, the Crawdon, and the Conkeldurr. Not too many surprises here. A little surprised to see the Conkeldurr because, like I said in the team builder, yes, it is a pretty big threat to my team, but every single time it comes in and even it gets a kill, my Azumarill can come in afterwards and easily pick up a kill of its own. So a little surprised about that, but otherwise, like, I can definitely see why Jose brought it because it can definitely dent holes in my teams. But otherwise, I am not surprised to see anything else here. This was definitely like close to the 6 I predicted him to bring. So yeah, looking at the lead matchup, honestly, looking at his lead, it's either going to be the Roserade or the Heatran in my opinion. So I'm going to lead with Miltank, as if he does lead with the Heatran, that's like the Pokemon that I want to have out against the Heatran, and then it can kind of hold its own against Roserade, especially since Jose doesn't know yet that I'm not Sap Sipper. He would be like he would basically be forced to not click Leaf Storm. So yeah, I'm gonna end up leading with my Miltank here, but as we see here, Jose actually ends up leading with the Conkeldurr, so he was definitely predicting my Miltank lead. So this is a pretty bad situation for me because I'm not really too sure. Like, I guess I have my Mew, and I'm definitely going to switch that in because without the Cresselia or the Slowking here, Mew is definitely the most expendable member here, and Jose does still have to fear the Psychic Attack. As you see here, he goes for Drain Punch, and he shows Life Orb, meaning that he is more than likely Sheer Force as well, which is really scary because that's the thing that definitely dents my team the hardest. But yeah, so from my experience in mocks that I had, Crawdon always gets a free switch into Mew, especially the Mew I brought. Not necessarily every Mew, but in my opinion, it was a pretty risk-free play for him to go into Crawdon here. So I try to get aggressive and predict it and go for U-turn, but Jose does stay in. Seeing that he stayed in, he's definitely going for a knockoff, which means my best play is to 100% going into Whimsicott to take the knockoff. He doesn't know that I don't have Moonblast, so he's definitely scared out here, and he has a safe switch into his Heatran, so I'm once again also going to go for the U-turn again with my Whimsicott, and I'm just going to go straight into my Miltank, as that's like my dedicated lead, or that's my dedicated Pokemon to deal with the Heatran. So he does show leftovers here, which means that he is not Shuca Berry, which means he's probably going to take a pretty big chunk from the Earthquake, which I'm going to go for here because basically because I want to scout if he's speedy with Taunt, and if I click Stealth Rocks there, then I'm just going to get blown out of the water completely. So like we do see here, he is speedy with Taunt, so I do click Earthquake, and unfortunately I crit him and knock out his Heatran. So obviously, it's not that unfortunate for me. It's only unfortunate because like it would have just been much nicer to get to have a clean game. But I mean, he wasn't Shuca Berry, which means like Earthquake was more than likely doing over half, which means he couldn't take another Earth Power from my Kyurem. So I'm not really too concerned about like how the state goes. As well, it's only turn 4, so it's really hard to Theriomon all the way from turn 4 to the end of the battle. But anyways, either way, that happened. It's kind of in the past. The thing that does happen though is that Jose gets a free switch into Conkeldurr. Once again, Mew is definitely the sack here. He goes for Fire Punch, and that does a shit ton of damage because of the Sheer Force Life Orb. I do go for the Soft Will to heal up some HP. As we do see here, he does just go for the knockoff against my Mew. And now seeing as though, like, since I did have Colbur Berry, staying in with the Conkeldurr isn't exactly the best play in the world, I do just click Soft Will here. He switches out into his Diancie. He goes for Moonblast here. I'm fine staying in since I'm relatively Spadef invested, and I'm going to fire off a Super Fang here because just to get some HP off on this Diancie, because the Diancie was already in range of Bullet Punch from full, like that was obvious, but with this amount of chip, it's also in range from Banded Aqua Jet from my Azumarill, which is really good. So now here, I'm not really too sure what he wants to do. I thought about going for Soft Boiled, but if he switches into Crawdon on my Soft Boiled, it's a really bad time for me. Even like I thought about Soft Boiled, but in the end, I decided to go for U-Turn because if I can get this Mega Diancie out of the way, it would just make my life a whole lot easier. So even if he clicks Moonblast or Stealth Rock, I can click U-Turn and pressure out with either my Scizor or my Azumarill. Is yet to be decided, but he actually switches out into his Crawdon, which is huge because I get a good chunk of damage off on this Crawdon, and I can easily switch into my Whimsicott to offensively pressure this out. I did think about going for U-Turn again, but right now Jose is definitely on the back foot, so he could have gotten aggressive to try to get some momentum from me. So I had no fear really to go for Energy Ball. Oh, excuse me. Even he did have the very safe switch into Roserade, which, as we see here, is actually not defensive. 8% on Energy Ball is a lot for an offensive, like for a Roserade to take it, and it shows that he definitely isn't bulk invested, or at least like not very much bulk invested. So now here, like, Jose has very free reign to just fire off a Sludge Bomb, so I'm gonna U-turn out once again and go into my Mew, as it's definitely the most expendable member, like I've been mentioning. As he does fire off a Sludge Bomb, I'm gonna click Taunt here in case he wants to try to stack me right away. Well, unfortunately, Jose is actually offensive Roserade, so he will outspeed here and knock on my Mew before I can get a taunt off. But this is okay because now that he has reduced special attack, my Kyurem just comes in and can basically claim a kill with Ice Beam here. So he does. Jose switches into the Crawdon to take the Ice Beam, which is perfectly fine. And yeah, like I personally think like this is a free kill because like Aqua Jet's not doing too much. I can just go for Ice Beam. But Jose actually shows that he is Choice Scarf Crawdon, which is a really good bring on his part because like with Kyurem getting the leftovers knocked off, that's actually really annoying for Kyurem. So it's really unfortunate, but it was just a good bring on his part. So Jose does bring in the Mega Diancie to revenge. I have a really safe switch into Miltank. I'm Spadef enough to where I can't get 2-hit KO'd from full. As we do see here, I am going to go for the Milk Drink in case he wants to try to get Stealth Rocks up. But as we see here, Jose makes a very good double into his Conkeldurr to pressure out my Miltank. I'm gonna go into Whimsicott because like Whimsicott's definitely the sack here. I'm just gonna fire up a C move honestly because I thought he might get aggressive and stay in, or go into his Mega. Like I don't know. It was just because I wanted to get the C move off, if I'm being totally honest. As we see here, his Tornadus is actually really slow and is holding Rocky Helmet because his U-turn goes after my Whimsicott. So really good information to know. I switched into the Miltank to basically take a Hurricane that he was that it seemed like he was going to go for, since at this point Miltank is definitely my main special sponge. So definitely switching into that was definitely the play on the Tornadus. But since he went for U-turn, he just gets Conkeldurr back in onto my Miltank. Once again, I'm just going to switch into my Whimsicott. It's definitely the sack here because like it's really not doing much. Diancie's in range where it can die to both Bullet Punch and Aqua Jet. I don't have Moonblast on this Conkeldurr, and it's looking like I can outspeed it with my Azumarill and kill it with Play Rough. And then he has two very safe switch-ins to this Pokemon, into Whimsicott with his Roserade and his Tornadus T. So Whimsicott was definitely the sack there. But yeah, like I said in the team builder, Conkeldurr got a kill, but Azumarill basically gets to get a kill, or at least close to it. So I am going to fire off a Play Rough, and that does a chunk of damage. Like, that is not a resist, my boy. Yeah, so unfortunately we don't get enough to kill, and I don't want Azumarill to take a butt ton of damage in case he does attack what's in front of him. So I do get sort of aggressive and switch into Kyurem as he goes for the synthesis. Jeez, had he gone for Sludge Bomb, obviously Leaf Storm wasn't killing. Had he gone for Sludge Bomb, the only way he would have killed there was if he got a crit or got the poison. So maybe it was wrong. maybe it was wrong to predict or to switch into Kyurem aggressively like that, but either way, it did work out for me. And now I just get free reign to fire off an Ice Beam again, as Jose does decide to sack his Conkeldurr here, which is really good for me because this thing doesn't have Mach Punch. It's already revealed Drain Punch, Knockoff, Fire Punch, and Thunder Punch, so this Conkeldurr is just going to die to 2 Ice Beams, which is fantastic. And now Jose does go into his Megaane. Once again, I'm just going to go into my Miltank, as it's at this point my dedicated Special Sponge, as we do see here. He does get the special attack drop, obviously doesn't matter, but I am going to fire off a Milk Drink to try to stay healthy with my Miltank, and Jose does decide to go into his Roserade, so unfortunately if he does decide to start stacking me, it will work because I really don't have another play. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get up my Rocks, as this is very important, which means because basically it prevents Torn from being a total nuisance, as even though it will gain a little bit amount of HP back every time it switches out, it still has to take 25% from Rocks, which means that a combination of Aqua Jet and Bullet Punch from Scizor and Azumarill can knock it out after Rocks. As well, it means that Diancie can switch into Ice Beam from Kyurem, as Ice Beam couldn't kill from 50, but with Rocks it can kill from Kyurem. So once again, I think we're going to just go back and forth here. I think I'm going to try to get a Milk Drink off to get some health back, but he does get the poison, which is a little unfortunate, but I mean, it's not the end of the world. Like, it isn't toxic, so it's not going to stack too much, but I am going to fire off a Body Slam here to try to get some damage off on this Roserade for it to be in range of Ice Beam from Kyurem after this goes down. I believe here I do fire off a Body Slam again in case Jose wants to get aggressive and go into Torn, but he actually shows Leaf Storm, which is, I mean, it's slightly ballsy of Jose if I'm being honest, because I guess from the way early in the game that like I U-turned when he switched in his Heatran and I U-turned with Whimsicott, excuse me, and I brought in the Miltank, I guess that could have tipped him off that I was thick fat, but realistically, he had no idea what, like, he could have predicted it, but I mean, I could have very well been Sap Sipper. I hadn't been revealed to be thick fat yet, so, little risky going for the Leaf Storm, but I mean, hey, it worked out for him, so what can we say? But once again, this Roserade is out, and it has a reduced special attack, so Kyurem gets to come out and basically claim another kill, because either he sacks this Roserade, or he switches in either Torn or Megaane, which both die to Ice Beam from this range, and this is fantastic. Without that Heatran around, my Kyurem is just completely free to spam Ice Beam, and don't worry, I'll talk about that at the end of the game, don't worry. But he does go into Torn here. At this point, like, I don't need to risk the roll on Hurricane for Kyurem to kill. Or him being like mixed with superpower, even though I didn't think it was likely. So Scizor is definitely the sack here because Bullet Punch just isn't doing enough to Roserade in the first place, and given the fact that Roserade probably has Hidden Power Fire, Scizor is not going to be bulky enough to be able to take after the Hurricane the Hidden Power Fire, whereas Azumarill can still take a Sludge Bomb potentially. But yeah, I just figured Azumarill, like, based on the fact that most likely not only the Hidden Power Fire on the Roserade, but also potential Heat Wave on the Torn, I think it's more likely that he would have Heat Wave on Torn rather than Sludge Wave, even though it could be possible that he wanted both. Basically, I just saw Azumarill as the more desirable Pokemon to keep around. But either way, he does get the Confusion on my Scizor, which is really unfortunate because now I have to play with Confusion. I am going to fire off a Bullet Punch just to get some damage off on this Tornadus, as long as we can break through the Confusion, and we do. So we do get some chip on this Tornadus, as we do see here he's going to fire off a Heat Wave and kill my Scizor, which is fine. But now my Azumarill gets to come in, and I have to click Liquidation here, and since we know he's not Z, he can't knock me out in one hit. I can't lock into Aqua Jet because if Jose gets aggressive and switches into Roserade here, then Aqua Jet can't do enough to 2-hit KO the Roserade, or I think it might be a roll to 2-hit KO the Roserade. So, but either way, like, it's got to a point where he could do that, but then once he pivots back into Tornadus, he's out of range of oh my goodness, he's out of range of Aqua Jet if he switches out and gets Regenerator. So, basically, and as well, since I'm like, I guess the easier way to explain this would have been, he can't kill me in one hit because he's not Z. Liquidation kills this, and it kills Azumarill, or it kills Roserade on the switch after Rocks. So, Liquidation is definitely my play here. as he does fire off the Hurricane. I don't get confused, luckily, and we are able to knock out this Tornadus with Liquidation. And once again, all Jose has left is his Roserade, and I am just going to keep firing off Liquidations here because if he got aggressive there and fired off a Sludge Bomb just to kill what was in front of him, and I switched into my Kyurem to try to save differential, either a crit or a poison would make me lose the game because he would be faster than my Azumarill to be able to knock it out with Sludge Bomb, and he wouldn't be out of range where Aqua Jet could kill. So definitely firing off Liquidations until he decides to kill me with Azumarill is the play, as he does here. And now Kyurem can come in and clean up the game with Ice Beam. And yeah, that is going to be good game to Jose. We end up winning week 1, 1-0. And yeah, that was a fantastic game. Kyurem getting 4 kills that game, which was incredible work from Kyurem. Yeah, so let's talk about the crit, because obviously that's a thing. So in my opinion, like, obviously it did matter for the time, but him clicking Taunt and me clicking Earthquake definitely meant that like Heatran would not have had a lot of HP. It would have had to switch in. Like, let's be real, like, Heatran was the switch into Kyurem every time I fired off an Ice Beam, but since we were confirmed already that he was Leftovers and not Scarf, and also not Shuka Berry, obviously, it would have had to die. It would have had to either, like, he would have sacked it to another Earth Power or scouted for Earth Power, so he would have had to play around with Earth Power shenanigans. I would have had to, like, predict a little bit more with my Kyurem in terms of what move I was clicking, but honestly, like, as long as I played it relatively safe, I think, I can't say the result would have been the same, because, like, it was turn 4 and this was 38 turns in the game. Like, it's really hard to Theory Mon all the way from the beginning of the game to this point. But at the same time, it's not like I didn't have the tools to take on the Kyurem, or sorry, it's not like I didn't have the tools to take on the Heatran at all. Like, I mean, I had Taunt Super Fang on my, well, Taunt doesn't really matter, but, like, I had Super Fang on my Mew to make it, to, like, basically cut his HP in half. Like, there was no way I was switching into Liquidation from Azumarill. I had, like, I mean, HP Ground on Whim is, like, a little bit less relevant because, it's a little less relevant because if he's specially defensive, it's not doing a ridiculous amount. But I also did have Superpower on, I did have Superpower on Scizor, which was a thing. Yeah, like, I think I still have the tools to, win this match even without the crit, but it just so happened that the crit helped me out in the situation to play slightly more safe with my Kyurem, which ended up winning me the game, so I'm happy with that. It's unfortunate, though, that I still did have to have that sort of hacks happen to Jose. I would have liked a clean game, but either way, GG Jose. Yeah, so really good 1-0 win for us, and next week, oh boy, next week we are going up against Jacko, coach of the Sootopolis Swamperts. And man, like, Jacko, like, this is probably going to be one of the hardest games I've ever had to play because Jacko's an insane battler. So yeah, keep your guys' eyes out on the channel next week for when my Team Builder versus Jacko goes live. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.